end of the session when we are going to do a question and answers. By raising your hand, you ask for the floor, and we will give you the floor in order in which you asked for it. During the whole webinar, we will ask you to mute your microphones to avoid any background noise, and also, if possible, your camera, so that we have maximum bandwidth for the presentations. So, again, if you have any issues, please contact Phil. Thank you. Now I'll proceed to the presentations. My name is Melissa Lim. I'm a program officer in the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions, and I'll be giving the first presentation of this webinar. We also have with us Ms. Nana Zhao, who a representative of China, who is one of the co-leading countries working on the update of the technical guidelines on plastic waste. And this will be the topic of our second presentation. So today, I'll be telling you about the plastic waste amendments, so-called plastic waste amendments. And the objective is to really inform you about activities that can assist parties with implementation of these amendments, in particular, the more technical aspects. First, some background. The plastic waste amendments are changes to the Basel Convention annexes that were adopted by the Conference of the Parties at its 14th meeting in May 2019. The entries will become effective on 1 January 2021. The Secretariat has organized a series of 3 webinars to support parties to prepare for these effective dates. The first series took place over the past 2 weeks, and they addressed legal and institutional aspects. You can find a recording of this webinar on our website. Today, we're going to speak about some technical aspects, including those related to the technical guidelines. And towards the end of the month, there will be some more webinars addressing enforcement aspects. So if you're interested in that particular aspect, I encourage you to watch the space on our website, where you will find more information about how to connect and also the content of the webinars. Today, I will first go through a brief introduction of the plastic waste amendments, after which I'll guide you through some of the tools and guidance and also activities that can assist in their implementation. Then, as announced, Ms. Nana Zhao will tell you about the process for the update of the technical guidelines for the identification and environmentally sound management of plastic waste and their disposal. And we will have some time for you to ask questions, and we'll try to answer them. The plastic waste amendments were adopted through decision BC 14/12 at the 14th meeting of the Conference of the Parties. And I'm glad to see that we have with us the co-chair of the contact group that helped with these amendments, Ms. Vivian Ahern. And it was a groundbreaking decision that really expanded and clarified the scope of plastic waste that are regulated under the Basel Convention. One of the additions is to Annex IX of the Convention. It's B3011, and this deals with waste that are presumed not to be hazardous and not subject to the prior informed consent procedure. As most of you may know, the prior informed consent procedure is the core mechanism of the Basel Convention, addressing the transboundary movement of hazardous waste and other waste as defined by the Convention. So B3011 covers waste of single polymers, of certain types of single polymers, or a mixture of PE, PP, and or PET. So these plastic waste, these types of plastic waste, if they are destined for recycling in an environmentally sound manner and free from contamination and other types of waste, then are not subject to the PIC procedure. The decision adopted a mirror to B3011, and that Y48, which was added to Annex II. Annex II deals with waste that requires special consideration and also subject to the PIC procedure. So Y48 is a mirror of B3011, meaning that anything that is not in B3011 and is not hazardous waste falls into Y48. And then under Annex VIII, which are waste presumed to be hazardous and subject to the PIC procedure, there was the addition of A3210, which clarifies the scope of plastic waste that are hazardous. These amendments become effective as of 1 January 2021. We have prepared a series of frequently asked questions and answers that you can find on our website at the link indicated on this slide that will provide some answers to questions such as what kind of plastics waste are covered by the amendment, are subject to the PIC procedure, which ones were not or not, and what was the status before and after the date of on which the amendments become effective. Also there you will find information on which countries are bound by the amendments. So clearly for amendment as complex as the those adopted by decision 14/12, there will be vast implications for the transboundary movement of plastic waste. In addition, there will be implications for how plastic is managed at the national level. Interpretation and implementation of the amendments are the prerogative of parties. So a lot of what has to happen has to be decided at the national level. Last week or 2 weeks ago, when my colleague gave the webinar on the legal institutional aspect, she emphasized that implementation of the amendment starts with implementation of the Basel Convention core mechanisms, and then a lot of consultation and coordination has to happen at the national level to ensure then that these provisions are adapted for plastic waste as defined by the amendment. So this is to say, and we heard this yesterday when we had the first webinar of this series, that a lot of work has to be done at the national level. In addition, though, some level of harmonization has to happen at the international level, since the Basel Convention is an international instrument. And this type of harmonization and the guidance provided by parties on their common understanding of implementation happens through a number of work streams that are mandated by the Conference of the Parties when they meet every 2 years to discuss challenges and find solutions. So on this slide here, I've highlighted 2 areas of work that are of high relevance to the implementation of technical aspects of the Basel Convention and of the plastic waste amendments. Today in this webinar, the aim is not as much as to provide you direct answers to the many questions that you may have, as much as to give you some guidance as to where you can find the resources to start thinking about them and to find solutions on our website. The web page of the Basel Convention is very rich, and we are aware that it may be sometimes difficult to navigate. So in this slide and the following ones, you will find links to all the various tools, guidance, and activities that I will be referring to. In a way, it's a map for you to understand how they all relate to the plastic waste amendments. On this slide, I've highlighted the technical guidelines, which really are documents that are developed by parties and observers to address environmentally sound management of specific types of waste. They also tackle hazardous characteristics and disposal operations. In one example of where technical guidelines are used to find harmonization on certain issues is, for example, on the issue of the definition of waste and non-waste for electronic waste. There's a technical guideline specifically on this topic because this is an area where parties have difficulties in finding a common understanding, and work on this issue is ongoing. The other body of work that's also highly relevant is on environmentally sound management. And here again, a few years ago, parties decided that finding a common understanding of what is meant by environmentally sound management can help promote the implementation and effectiveness of the Basel Convention. So an expert group was set up, and they have devised a number of guidance and tools to help parties with this concept. And you will find at the address indicated on this slide all these tools that have been brought together under the so-called ESM toolkit. I've spoken about tools that are generally applicable to the Basel Convention. Now I'll turn to some activities that are specific to plastic waste. In addition to adopting BC-14/12 at its 14th meeting, the Conference of the Parties adopted Decision 14/13, Further Actions to Address Plastic Waste, as an accompanying measure. This decision gives impetus to a number of work streams under the Convention, which are highly relevant to the amendments. Here I've highlighted three of them. The first is the technical guidelines. You will hear more about this in a few minutes from Ms. Nana Zhao. The second is the Partnership on Plastic Waste, which was established through this decision, and I will give you a brief overview in a few slides. The third is the review of annexes. So there's an ongoing process, a very important one, under the Convention, with an expert group having been set up to look at updating, if possible, the annexes of the Convention, which were devised more than 30 years ago, and bringing them up to date as necessary. So this expert working group was given the mandate to consider whether any additional constituents or characteristics in relation to plastic waste should be added to Annex 1 or 3. The expert group is not currently addressing this question. It's right now dealing with Annex 4 on disposal operations, but I'll direct you to the webpage indicated here if you want to follow this stream of work and find out what the conclusions will be. In addition, Decision BC 14/13 refers to some other line of work that are also highly relevant to the amendments. One is on the cooperation with the World Customs Organization to prepare or devise harmonized system codes that correspond to the to plastic waste as listed under the Basel Convention. So at the meeting of the open-ended working group that happened virtually last week, it was agreed that comments would be invited on a draft proposal prepared by the Secretariat by 15 September 2020. The draft proposal are contained in document INF10, and you can find this on the web page shown on this slide. It is really important for the Secretariat to receive comments from parties and observers that will be using these custom codes. So this webinar is also an opportunity for us to make a call for you to engage in all the processes that I've highlighted and will be highlighting, so that we have outputs that are useful and effective. Another line of work that is of interest is the development of guidance on inventories of plastic waste. And here again, a draft guidance has been developed by the Secretariat in document IN15 for the open-ended working group 12th meeting. And also here, comments are invited by the 15th of September. You will find the document at the link indicated on the screen. Last but not least, the decision asked the Secretariat to prepare consideration of further activities that could be conducted under the Convention, and also invited parties and others to submit information on certain polymers that are covered by B3011, but which at the time of negotiation of the amendments were rather controversial as to whether they should be included in B3011 and therefore not subject to the PIC procedure. So comments are invited on this topic, and they will be presented to the 15th meeting of the Conference of the Parties that will be held in July 2021. Again, there's a web link here for you to follow this line of work in case it's of interest. Now, I'll give you a brief overview of the activities under the Plastic Waste Partnership. The partnership was established with the goal of promoting the environmentally sound management of plastic waste. Since its inception, 4 project groups have been established under the partnership working group to undertake the work of the working group. These address the 4 aspects shown on the screen here. I'll let you read them and not enumerate. And the one that's highly relevant to the amendments is the one on transboundary movement of plastic waste, which I will touch upon in the next slide. I'd also like to highlight, though, that under the partnership, there's a call for proposal for pilot projects, which are an important aspect of the partnership's work. And it is intended that through lessons learned through these pilot projects, further activities could be devised under the partnership. So in case you're interested in the projects, you can refer to this web link shown on the screen. But in general, the partnership is open to all parties and observers. And as you see, it covers a wide range of topics. And if it's something that you are interested in or you think you can contribute to, please do contact the Secretariat and to see how you can become a member. Now, as I mentioned, Project Group 3 of the partnership addresses the transboundary movement of plastic waste. Its work plan contains 4 activities, 2 of which are considered of high priority, and they are listed here with the outputs to be produced in a very short time. And activity 1 will be led by the World Customs Organization, and activity 2 will be led by the Argentina and SIMS recycling. So under activity 2, as you can see, the aim is to collect and compile information on various aspects related to the plastic waste amendment and on which parties have and others have had many questions, namely what it means to be for plastic waste shipments to be almost free from contamination, and what does exclusively consisting of a single polymer can mean. So here we will also be collecting information on challenges encountered and disseminating this information widely. So again, if this is something of interest to you, it is still time for you to join the partnership and the work ongoing under Project Group 3. Last but not least, the Secretariat, through its Technical Assistance Program, has a number of projects ongoing in different countries through which it's looking at implementation of the amendments. And from lessons learned, we will be developing tools and guidance or manuals that can help other parties in implementing the amendments. I won't go into much detail here, but direct you to this web page so that you can find out more about the various activities. So I'd like to thank you for your attention on this brief presentation. You have my contact details on this slide. There are a number of colleagues in the Secretariat who works on all the aspects of plastic waste that I've shown you. And if you have any questions, specific ones on one of these, you can ask, you can send me an email and I will direct you to the right person. And we will continue now with the presentation by Ms. Nana Zhao on the technical guidelines of plastic waste. And at the end of the two presentations, we will open up for questions. So I will now change to the next presentation and invite Nana to take the floor.
Thank you, Melissa. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, Nana, we can hear you quite well. And if you tell me at the end of each slide, I will change them for you.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. And I'm Zhao Nana from China. And today, on behalf of the Small International Working Group on the Technical Guidelines on Plastic Waste and of the other two co-lead countries of this group, Japan and the UK, I'm pleased to provide you with a brief summary of the work carried out by this group since COP14 last week. And we are now, this guideline, the name is Technical Guideline for the Identification and Environmentally Sound Management of Plastic Waste and for their disposal. This technical guideline was adopted on COP6 2002. So until now, it has adopted about 18 years. And we all know that with the economy developed, the plastic product and the management of plastic waste has improved a lot. So last year, on the COP14, the parties adopted decision BC 14/13 on updating this guideline with the establishment of a small international working group. And China, Japan, and United Kingdom offered to co-lead the work. The SIWG has representatives of parties and other stakeholders, and the work was supported by the consultant. Until now, there are 34 members from 22 parties and 35 observers from 22 countries and organizations. And for more details, you can see from this web page. Next, please. Melissa, next page, please.
Nana, may I,
Yes.
I ask? I got a message that some people are not hearing you too well. Can you maybe speak not too close to your microphone?
Maybe I.
Now it's
Yeah,
better.
I can say. Oh, it's better. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I think there's a brief echo when you speak too close to your microphone.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I will continue. And okay, thank you. And since COP14, the group has held 4 teleconferences so far. The most recent was been on 29 July. The group and co-lead countries revised the table content of the original technical guidelines adopted in 2002 and developed a new draft based on this revised table of content. At the end of 2019, based on the input from the Small Intersectional Working Group on Plastic Waste, a first updated draft of these guidelines was developed and circulated among the group members and observers. Following this first draft, several parties and observers have provided comments, which were the basis for the development of the second updated draft. And the second updated draft was brought to the attention of the OEWG 12. If you want to see the document, you can find from this page. It is as the INF document 14. Next, please. And the outline of the current draft is quite similar with the other technical guidelines under the Basel Convention on specific type of waste. It includes, first one is the introduction. This chapter includes the guideline scope, about the plastic and plastic waste, common types of plastics and their composition, including the typical plastic additives. And the second chapter is the relevant prevention of the Basel and of the Stockholm Convention and international linkage, such as the work under the UNIA on marine plastic litter and microplastics and SICAM work. The third chapter is the guidance on the ESM of plastic waste, and it is the most important chapter under these guidelines. Here include the first one is the legislative and regulatory framework and the waste prevention, minimization, identification of inventory, monitoring, including the sample, and handling, separation, collection, packaging, compaction, transportation, storage, and shipping. And then is the most important is the environmentally sound disposal. Here we include first is the recycling of plastic waste, including the mechanical recycling and chemical recycling. And second is the energy recovery from plastic waste. And then it go to the final disposal of plastic waste. And the same as the other technical guidelines, the health and safety, the emergency response, awareness, and participation chapters also included in the current draft. In addition, to consider the degradable plastic waste is a new emergent issue, so a special consideration chapter of the degradable plastic waste is added in the current draft. Also, an annex is included. Next, please. Under the development of the current draft, there are some discussion points, like the content applicable to different countries, which have different capacity to manage the plastic waste, such as the level of detail required on each ESM method. Someone think like the manure sorting in environmentally sound management way need to be more clarified. And for the method, like which method to emphasize, some participants think that because we know that technical guideline will include the technologies are commercially used. But in different countries, there are different capacity. So maybe for the SIWG, it's a little difficult to cover all the technology which is commercially used. So here, especially on the chemical recycling, if some of the participants have a better idea and more information about the chemical recycling, we are very happy to know that. And the other discussion point, like the level of detail on the different waste streams related, because under the current structure, we listed several typical type of waste stream, such as PP, PET. So for the recycling technology of the different waste stream to cover the how the details to how much content is also a discussion point. And the other is like to the link to the recent amendment of the convention. There are discussion that whether this technical guideline need to cover the transboundary movement requirement or guidelines or specification on that. And another one is about the emphasis on the marine plastic later, whether this one need to be stressed on a specific chapter. And the other discussion point, like the waste prevention and minimization, someone thinks this chapter is very important, so it need to be clarified more. And the others, like the EPR and like the degradable plastic waste. Next, please. Based on the current draft, the way forward to update the technical guideline that, as requested by the OEWG, 12 parties and observers to the Basel Convention are invited to provide comments on this current draft by 15 September 2020. The SIWG will continue to revise the guidelines taking into account the comments. And the SIWG will meet online to negotiate the next revised version. And this online meeting is tentatively scheduled for December 2020. Actually, this meeting was expected to held face-to-face, but we all know that the COVID-19 and we are not possible to meet face-to-face. And after that meeting, a new revised version of the guidelines will be submitted for the consideration of COP15 next year. And also we need to assess whether the new version needs to be held further revision next year before COP or following it. Next, please. Okay. Here we thank the government of Norway and Germany for their generous financial support and all the members and observers of the SIWG for their hard work. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Next, please. And here I listed the contact information of the co-lead countries and also the support staff from the Secretariat. If you need more clarification, feel free to contact us by email. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nana, for this clear presentation. We have now reached the end of the presentations, and we will take a brief minute before we open the floor for questions. So please think of your questions. And as mentioned already, in case you would like to ask one, raise your hand using the raise hand icon. We will give priority to the oral questions, and eventually we will look at the chat box and see if there's anything there that we can address. So I'll just take a brief pause before I open the floor for questions.
Sorry, if someone could has opened their mic, could you please mute it because there is a baby noise behind. Thank you.
Phil, it's Melissa. Do you want to stop the recording?
Sorry, is that aimed at me?
No, I'm sorry. I was asking Philomena.
Apologies.
So please raise your hand in case you have questions. I see already one from Phil Conran. When you take the floor, could you please briefly introduce yourself so we know where you're coming from? Thank you. So Phil Conran, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. My name is Phil Conran. I chair something called the Advisory Committee on Packaging for the UK government. And of particular interest to me, and I think probably a lot of people, is how far we're going to be going with the definitions of almost that come into almost free from and almost exclusively. And I note you mention in Project Group 3 that these are subject to further discussion. And my question really is, how far do you think the definition of those words will go, and how much will it be left down to member states? Member nation.
Thank you, Phil. Nana and the first and then the other co-leading countries who are present and dealing with the technical guidelines. Would you like to answer that question? Nana?
Hi, Melissa. I'm not sure I catch the questions. For Project 3, you mentioned that which definition is a polymer or plastic?
No, the question was the extent to which there will be guidance provided on the definitions in the description of B30 11, related to almost free from contamination and consisting of single polymers, consisting almost exclusively, and so to the extent to which this will be addressed. So if you wanted to share something about what's happening in the technical guidelines discussion on this topic, and I think also then Patrick would like to provide some of his views.
Okay, thank you. And it's regarding to the amendment of plastic waste, also exclusively contaminated. And I think that is also a discussion point of the technical guideline, whether the technical guideline needs to cover the amendment, the transboundary movement, like the specification, the national and the international specification. Because under the plastic waste amendment, the transboundary movement requirement of the plastic waste quality need to follow the international and the national specification. So until now, I think the technical, current draft technical guideline didn't mention the definition of which type of waste is should be covered by the is specifically covered by the amendment or not. As all covered the general plastic waste environmental sound management. And if anything, Patrick, if you want to add something, please. Thank you.
Patrick, would you like to add anything? I saw Patrick raise his hand, but not anymore. Is he still connected? Oh, yes, Patrick.
Yes, he is connected, but I'm not sure about the sound.
Oh.
Patrick, we can't hear you. We see you there, but no sound.
Please go ahead, and Melissa, I will just check with Patrick.
Okay. Then I think...
Can I come back on that?
Okay.
Because I think for those of us who've been following these amendments now for some time, for the last, year and a half, a lot of it has come down to that level of detail. And I think we broadly understand what is included in B3011 in terms of different polymer types. But the real issue then comes down to trying to define where the quality standard sits in terms of those definitions of almost free from and almost exclusively. And as I say, the big issue then comes down to whether it's left to member nations to make that definition, or whether there will be a common definition that we'll all be able to use. So it's a hugely important issue for us.
Yes, thank you, Phil, for clarifying. While we wait for Patrick to give his perspective on this, I see that there's Cyrene and Sam Adukumi who have raised their hand. But before I give the floor, I wanted to know whether it's on the same or different topic. Cyrene, is it on the same topic or something else?
Yes, thank you. It's continuing on the same topic.
Yes, please.
Thank you. I'd like to emphasize the point made by Mr. Conran. We also see this issue as being key, especially as, we're talking about trade here. So if we have exporting countries who set, let's say, 2% all non-hazardous contaminants, and then the importing country has a dramatically different or lower, interpretation of that, then that will obstruct trade. So we really think that clear guidance, so that we can have some harmonization in how that's being implemented, would be helpful. And we do, and in relation to the technical guidelines that we're following, unfortunately, we haven't seen a clear response to this question. We've only seen some discussion of existing voluntary industry specifications, which don't have the same role as this contamination limit. These industry specifications, they're a mechanism to set prices. So, shipments that don't meet the specifications get traded at even lower prices, and in some ways that might mean that they circulate even more. And indeed, I know in terms of some plastics, for example, the current ISRI specifications allow very high contamination rates for agricultural plastics in terms of soil as a contaminant. And we've heard from recyclers who deal with agricultural plastics that soil contamination is an obstacle. So clearly we need something more. And I was wondering whether Mrs. Zhao would be able to share with us a little bit on China's experience, because before China banned plastic waste imports, they did impose contamination limits, and perhaps understanding how they came to those figures could help us navigate that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Cyrene. I see Patrick has his hand raised. Can we hear you now, Patrick?
I hope so. Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed. So please, the floor is yours.
Okay, so apologies. I've obviously missed a bit of previous discussions. I know there was the original question related to some of the difficult terminology in the Basel decision, such as almost exclusively, almost free from, and the like. Now, my understanding is there are a number of members of the small international working group that would like the technical guidelines to include further guidance on the definitions of these terms, or at least further interpretive guidance to assist parties and industry stakeholders in implementing these changes. I think that's a reasonable request, and I think some of the members of the SIWG are likely to come forward with suggestions. Naturally, the process that the SIWG goes through is to try and reach consensus amongst the members of the group as much as possible. So I think we have to wait and see what those members of the SIWG wish to propose. But I think there's certainly strong support from certain parties for further guidance on this matter. I don't think that will necessarily be available for the COP in next year. I think we have to be somewhat realistic, but the current circumstances around COVID-19 have delayed a lot of the work in relation to these technical guidelines. So we have to be realistic of the possibility that there may not be a finalized set of guidelines following next COP, and they may not be available till after the following COP. But of course, parties to the convention have discretion to come forward with their own guidelines on these issues. I think that's a really important point to highlight, that there can be national guidance, and I believe some parties to the convention are already developing their own guidance on this particular matter.
Thank you, Patrick. I see Sam Adukumi from Ghana has raised his hand, and I'll give him the floor on this topic before maybe Nana would like to respond to Cyrine's question. Sam?
Hello, Melissa, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, thanks so much, and thank you, Anana, for your nice presentations. I really want to, talk about the effective implementation of the amendment come January 1st, 2021. As you know, there are so many stakeholders involved in implementation at the national level where action is really going to be felt. And you have the tools and the guidance that you have already spoken about. I know that the technical guidelines are still undergoing revision, and perhaps I'm not sure when it will be finished. But the ESM toolkits are available. So to help us at the national stakeholder consultation or involvement, would it be nice that perhaps the Secretariat can maybe organize some webinars and other online meetings at least to help us appreciate and understand the job ahead of us? I think we need really to know more about some of these things, especially our stakeholders who are not very conversant with the convention. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the suggestion, Sam. We can discuss further about such possibilities after the webinar. I wanted to check with Nana as to whether she would like to come back to Cyrine's question.
Thank you, Melissa. And Cyrine's question is about China's specification on the plastic waste import. Actually, I know that the pollution control national standard of the imported plastic waste before that China imposed the waste import ban. Under that national specification, the contamination of the plastic waste need to be below 0.5%. But I'm very sorry that because I'm not the director of the national standards, so I'm not sure whether this number, the 0.5%, how it's calculated. To my understanding, that I know something was changed in the recent years, because before the Chinese import ban, China import a lot of plastic waste from all over the world, and only the contamination contained in the plastic waste is it's allowed by the national standard. The contamination quantity is in very huge amount. So if Siri want to know some calculation detail, maybe we can communicate by email, and I will find the right person to answer the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Nana. So I see in the chat box.
Yeah, go ahead.
In the chat box, there was a question sent by someone called Hannah, and I think this is relevant to the technical guidelines. She asks whether the technical guidelines will provide information on how the amendments apply to different types of common plastics. Nana, would you like to address that?
Yes, I'm just thinking about the question whether the Basel team will be providing some simple guidance.
Whether the technical guidelines will provide guidance on how the amendments apply to different types of common plastics.
Hi everyone, it's Hannah. Shall I just add to that?
Yes, please.
Question. It's really not needing to wait for those technical guidelines, because as Patrick has said, they are going to be some time before they are drafted and fully agreed. I think what we need in the immediate time frame, ideally before these changes impact on the 1st of January next year, is a really simple flow chart detailing the common different plastic types and how they may be impacted. Our customers, our industry, may not have been involved in prior informed consent procedure before, and they need some very simple guidance, not wait for very detailed technical guidance that will take several years to arrive. And my question is whether the Basel team will be producing that, or is that for each individual member?
Yeah, well, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that the technical guidelines, at least the previous one, typically covered classification of different type of plastics under the convention. But maybe that's not what you're looking for. Another line of work that's ongoing is on identification of plastics and types of plastics, and there are tools under development for the purpose of enforcement by customs officers. And I think this might be more something that you are alluding to.
that sounds very interesting. Have we any idea when they will be delivering those?
Well, there are ongoing projects under the by the Secretariat and by some of our partners, and I'd like to invite you to join the webinar in 2 weeks about the enforcement issues, and there you may meet some more people who are working on these issues.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now we are getting close to the end of this webinar. I still see a hand raised. Patrick, did you want to come in on this question?
Hi, Melissa. Can you hear me?
Yes, quite well.
Good. So I just wanted to come back on the last question. I appreciate that regulators and industry are keen for guidance on this matter. I think this is very much, if guidance is needed essentially within the next few months, then this is really something that parties have to grasp and deal with and take on. The Secretariat is not mandated to provide guidance on these matters. Work is ongoing under various projects which are mandated effectively by the Conference of the Parties. So effectively, the work is already undergoing under the Small Intersessional Working Group and the Plastic Waste Partnership. That will not necessarily deliver to a timescale that regulators might wish, and therefore it's important that governments are parties to the convention and regulators work together to deliver that guidance and tailor it for their particular industry stakeholders. Thanks.
Thank you, Patrick. Sam, your hand's still up, and I also feel Conrad's hand. Did you want to add anything to this discussion?
No, it's for Conrad. Sorry.
No, please, sorry.
Okay.
I forgot lower.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the floor for our speakers? No, I see none, and yes, none in the chat box either. Okay. Last call for questions. Okay. So I don't see any hands raised. That means people are, I guess, still thinking about how to go about implementing these complex amendments. And as you have heard today, answers are not forthcoming, but it really requires discussion and consultation starting at the national level. And as I've highlighted, and Nana has highlighted, there's a lot of work ongoing under the convention mandated by the COP, and which allows for involvement of parties and observers at large. And these views will be really helpful in making the products resulting from this work, making them useful and effective. So if you are interested, please contact us for joining these activities. And also, as indicated, there is a call for comment on many of the products that are forthcoming. So we invite you to provide, to also participate in that way. With that, I would like to really thank Nana for giving such a great presentation and answering the questions, and to Patrick, who was our presenter yesterday, and for also coming in today and taking the time to answer additional questions. Thank you very much. And and thank you to all our participants. And this webinar will be made available to you by email. I'll let Philo clarify that following the webinar. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us. Thank you and goodbye.
Yeah, as I mentioned in my message below on the chat, the presentation will be made available to download at the end of the session. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can email us. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Phil, are you sharing the presentation?
It will be, I think, yes, I've put it on the chat already.
But for the downloading?
That will be Dan who will be doing that.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you mean
Dan
she
will
will
be
be
sending out.
sharing it by email with the
Yes,
participants?
by email. Yeah, exactly. That's
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's not available for download. It will be shared by email so
Yes,
that everyone doesn't wait around for doing
okay.
that.
Well, I have put it here on the chat, but it will be shared later.
Okay, that it will be shared later.
Yes.
Okay, then I think we can close the session.
Yeah. Thank
you, Phil.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.